Welcome. It's our last class today. I know, how sad for everyone. I don't know. Online classes, not as sad, I think. In-person classes can be quite sad. All right, but still sad. All right, so today what I want to do is essentially just go through all the final exam instructions. Okay, and then I've posted some practice for you to get to. Our final exam is not until not this Friday, but next Friday, right? So quite a bit of time. I know that you probably have other exams before our exam, obviously. And so I also know that you probably won't be studying for it quite yet. That's totally fine. And so when you are studying for it, then just if you have any questions, just let me know and we can meet on Zoom or potentially on campus. I'm not on campus this coming week too much. But we'll figure something out, right? Or just send me an email or text me. Okay, and so our final exam, and I guess it is on our Moodle page. So here, our last day, I've just got our, oh, it's lagging a little bit, final exam review today. And so I'm not going to do any problems because it would get kind of weird with what problem I should do. We don't have time to do all of them. And so what I want to do is just bring in this screenshot of our Moodle page, which is now available. The final exam portion, I mean. I'm going to crop this out. Okay. Let's see if I can make this just a little bit bigger. So our final exam is not until April 21st. Okay, so Friday, April 21st from 1 to 4, and it is just online. And this, if we scroll through here, right, today, what I just want to work through is just talk about all that's written here, because I know there's a lot of text here, and I know that no one likes to read. And so that's fine. So I just want to go through and talk about each of the sections, and then you'll be all good. At the very, very bottom, I did post practice for the final exam, and then practice for the final exam solutions. Okay, I noticed those solutions are from a long, long time ago, and there were some edits. So sorry about that. Guess I was sloppy or something. I don't know. But I'm not rewriting them. That's crazy. So, all right. So today I just want to go through and talk about each part here. Now, I think what I should do is just try to get a better screenshot with the whole thing. So let's see here. I'm gonna remove this. Oops. Delete this and replace it with that one, because I noticed a part of it was missing and I want all of it. All of it. Okay. So here's the top portion. Again, I'll just highlight here. Okay. I will be available for questions much any time, especially if it's online. I can always just hop on our Zoom room or by email or whatever you want. So I will be available for questions anytime on Zoom or by email or text, obviously, if you prefer that. You guys have been mostly emailing me though, and that's totally fine. They go to the same place. They go to my phone, so it doesn't matter. All right. So in terms of the Zoom room, I know I'm supposed to make you have your cameras on and stuff like that. I don't think that that's necessary. Oh yeah, did you guys see my new sweater? Okanagan College. The bookstore was having a sale, so I'll be in the Zoom room, okay, if you have any questions during the exam, but you don't have to be there. So if you don't want to be there, if that's stressful to you, then you don't have to be there. You can come into the Zoom room if you have a question and then leave. That's totally fine. Okay, I'll just be in the Zoom room. I'll be doing other things, and so you might have to keep my attention. I'll have the little ringer on, but sometimes during final exams, I'll be so busy doing marking or something. But so you do not need to have your camera on, okay? And so because I know final exams are super stressful, and so I don't want to do that, okay? But here's the thing, I will only be answering questions in the Zoom room, okay? Because I can't keep an eye on my email and my phone and everything else. In fact, I usually put my phone away for final exams. And so yeah, don't ask me why. It makes no sense. Why would I put my phone on? Anyways, I do. I can't help it. And so I usually don't have my phone. I'm obviously on my computer, but often I'm marking something else, right? And so if you have a question, it has to be in the Zoom room. Now you can ask it in the chat or just out loud if you want. Okay, so here I'll say chat or voice. Okay, that's up to you, but it has to be in the Zoom room. Okay. I've used this final exam in the past, and so there shouldn't be any issues with it. Okay, but if there are any problems with a question or anything like that, I will be announcing it in the Zoom room. So obviously, if you're not there, then you won't hear that. Yeah. Hopefully, I'll tackle a lot of those potential questions today. But okay, academic integrity. Okay. Really difficult with an online final exam. Okay, so the exam is open book. It's all on the table. It's open book. Okay, but of course you're expected to be working alone. Okay? So before you're able to start the exam, you're going to have to sign an academic integrity agreement. Okay, and it's available now if you want to get it done before the exam time. Okay, so it'll be open until our final exam closes, and then it'll close. But you're just saying, yes, I understand, I agree, and I'll show you where it is. It's this one here at the top. Okay, so you have to get 100% on it. You get multiple attempts if you need it, but you have to get 100% in order to gain access to the rest of the exam. So it might be a good idea to just get that over with right away, and not have to worry about it. Oh, wrong page. Okay. All right. So you have to do that. So you have to do the before you're able to start the exam, you'll need to sign the academic integrity agreement. Okay. There are 9 parts, it's 5, but there are 9 parts to the final exam. Okay. And each part is a 15-minute timed quiz, essentially. Okay, so you're allowed to do the parts in any order. So if you feel very strong in chapter 5, for example, then you'll see that there's a part for chapter 5, and you can go and get those done and just kind of feel good about it. Okay, kind of exciting. You will have the check option. Okay, and so you'll be able to check, no penalties. I'm realizing now, should have written this on the outside. No penalties. Okay. So you may do the parts in any order. I can't stress that enough, because I don't want you to start with a part that, so if part 1 is not a good section for you, then I don't want you to start there. I want you to start with something that you're comfortable with and then work through it. Okay. You'll only have 1 attempt per part, of course, and all the parts are weighted equally. Okay, that means that there are some parts that are easier, okay, and some parts that are harder, but in the end, they're all worth the same. Okay, so there will be some parts that you'll just fly through and get a high grade, and just don't worry too much, because that's going to be weighted the same as some of these harder parts. Okay, so for each part, there's a description telling you what I expect to see in terms of work. Okay, you will have to submit a single PDF of all your work for every question on the final exam that requires work. I should add that. Okay. For me, okay, you have to understand that, of course, my goal is to get you as many marks as possible, but I also have to mark a lot of these exams, and I am usually just as tired as you are. And you should try to make it as easy for me as possible to find the answers, right? So find these questions. You know, if you spoon feed me, I'm more likely to be able to find your answers. I do search high and low for all kinds of work. Okay, so I'm not saying that, but if you could help me out, then it'll just be a lot easier. Okay, so if you could put the questions in order in your written work, a nice way to do that is if you start each part on a new page. Okay, and so a new page, and then you'll just have all these pages, and you can rearrange them and put them in order later. Okay, hopefully by now you have a scanning app that you like. Okay, if you don't, I have an iPhone, so I'm kind of in the Apple ecosystem, and I really like Scannable. Okay, and so so for iPhone, or for Apple, I should say, I think you could probably get it. It's free, but Apple scanning app that I would recommend is called Scannable. It's free. It's like a little butterfly. Or I know Cam Scanner is really popular for other ones, or in general. You've had practice scanning all your work and submitting as one PDF. The final exam is where it's going to be super, super important. So I've been training you for the final exam, okay? And you have to do it, okay? This is where things get a little scary. So questions without supporting work will have their grade removed from Moodle and replaced with a 0. and may prompt an academic integrity violation charge. Okay, so that's my right. Okay, if I think you got these answers from somewhere else, right, I'm allowed to look into that. Okay, so you want to show all your work, and only if it requires work. Okay, there are some parts that say no work required. Okay, don't worry about those. But if it says you need to submit work, you have to submit work. Okay. If the answer on Moodle does not match the answer in your submitted PDF, okay, then you'll get a 0. Okay, on that question, obviously. Okay. Any work that's not submitted within 10 minutes of the end of the exam, so you have until 4:10. Okay. I will have to change your grade to 0, your final exam grade. Okay, that means you fail the course. I can't stress this enough. It would be very, very bad. Okay, and so please don't do that. Yeah. So or work due at 4:10. Oops. So I do give you, in case you need to use the entire 3 hours for the final exam parts, you do have that additional 10 minutes, and then your work is due. Okay. So scary, right? There are 45 minutes of the exam time, so the 3 hours that are unaccounted for. Okay, so I want you to use this time to, well, one, regroup, obviously, just kind of shake it off. And then just to clean up your work and prepare your submission, right? So if you're just working through part 1, for example, and you submit it, then you can take a couple of minutes just to make sure that your work is organized until you move on to the next part. Okay, so there are 45 minutes that that are just yours to do whatever you need to do. Okay. All right. So let's see here. What's the next part? Uh-oh. Run out of room. I'll crop it. Oops. Maybe if I can. Hey, what happened? It's gone. Just throw it back in. All right. Oh man. Okay. There. Okay. So moving on. We've got that academic integrity agreement. You have to do it to gain access to the rest of the exam. It's open now. Okay, so here, open now. So you can just get it done, not have to worry about it. I think you might have to mark it done like that. So you'll be able to put a little check mark there. Okay. I don't know if it's marked complete on its own, so potentially you have to do it by hand, but just make sure, if you can, just do it, just get it done. All right, so part 1 is from chapter 1. It's all short answer questions. Okay, it's 5 questions from chapter 1. And what I've done is I have a list of things that you can use for practice. So assignment 1 is good for practice. Quiz 1 is good for practice. Assignment 2, part of assignment 2 is good for practice. And then of course the chapter 1 problems and solutions. That's a lot, okay? And also you'll see some of these short answer questions on that practice that I posted, that PDF. Okay, so in terms of part 1, these questions will not require a lot of work. Okay, they're short answers, but I want to see how you arrived at each answer. Okay, so even if it's just a little kind of quick calculation, I want to see it just to support your work. Okay, so kind of minimal work required. So what you could do, and probably what I would do if I was a student, is I would start by organizing some papers, right? So I would have part 1 labeled at the top, and then have a new sheet with the next part that requires work. Part 2 doesn't require work, I don't think. Okay, but let's keep going. So here, so part 1, chapter 1, short answer questions, might be fun for gimme marks. Remember, you will have the check option, right, for all of these parts. Okay, so the only trouble is the 15-minute limit, right? So you have the check option, you can handle that. It's the 15-minute limit that might be hard to work around. All right, let's see here. So part 2. Let's put it here. Crop it up. Okay. There. Okay. Part 2. I think it's part 2. Okay. No work required for part 2. Okay. And so if you wanted to make sure that you have all your parts in your stack of papers ready to go, right, then you could say part 2, no work required, right? Just so you have all the parts on separate pages, that kind of thing. What I will say is this one's kind of sneaky. I just realized today when I was flipping through it that I didn't do any of these questions. And I know what you're thinking, Emily, that's insane. It's on our final exam. They're not mathy, okay? What you're gonna find, okay, so just hear me out. It's all multiple choice, okay? So you kind of select options and you have the check option, okay? So just kind of enjoy the free marks. Okay. So here, use the check option. Enjoy the free marks. I'm telling you. That's what happens when it's been a while since I used a final exam. Oh, shoot, because it has to be common against everyone else. Oh, okay, I'll pick these questions. They can do these. All right. You got this. All right. Then on to some real work, some other real work. And you know what? I'm gonna crop. Hey. I just wanted to crop this because I realized it had part 4 there. There we go. Okay. Might be nice to start with question or part 2, right? I don't know. Or maybe it's too scary. There is a note at the top telling you to use the check option, confessing we didn't do it in class. I just can't believe I didn't flip through it earlier. Oh well. Oh yeah, so now on to some real work. You're going to have some merchandising, right? In terms of your formula sheet, right? Merchandising is this section at the top. Okay. Whoops. Hey, it didn't grab it. So here you've got your merchandising formulas. Okay. You do have to show work for each question. Okay. There's only 2 questions. And in terms of practice, you've got lots of practice. You've got assignment 3, assignment 4, quiz 2, the chapter 3 problems and solutions. And you've also seen it on test 1. Now I know I keep the tests hidden. And so you can use practice test 1. But here is the merchandising. Right, merchandising. So for that part, you're limited to that section of the formula sheet. So that's kind of nice to know, right? Do you like those questions? Are you ready for those questions, right? Choose your own adventure. All right. Now let's see here. Oops. Part 4. Let's see here. I'll only bring in. It's mostly to myself. Okay, let's see here. Part 4. Part 4 is CVP analysis, which probably rings a bell. You know what? It can go on its own page. Why not? We're rich with pages here. All right. So CVP analysis on your formula sheet, right, is the next part down. Do you remember? Well, you will remember creating the profit function, solving for how much profit can I make if I sell 40 units, for example, right? And so just working with these guys. In terms of practice, you had assignment 4, the chapter 3 problems and solutions, and also practice test 1. You had a question, or at least maybe 1 or 2 questions on CVP analysis on test 1. And so you can look at practice test 1. You do have to show your work. Okay? And so far, the only one that you have a freebie on in terms of not showing work is part 2. Right? Otherwise, you have to show work for all of them. So that's why you're better off just assuming you have to show all your work. And then there's freebies along the way. All right. Let's do simple interest. Notice how it's just working through the formula sheet. That's how the course has been. so it's no surprise. Part 5 is on simple interest. I'll even make this a bit bigger. Simple interest, remember, we quickly moved on to compound interest, but simple interest is where we learned a lot of our skills, right? And so making timelines and that kind of things, we use the days between dates calculator. We did some fun things for simple interest, okay? And so on our formula sheet, we were here. Simple interest, simple interest. Our main players here were these two, right? So I is the amount of interest, P is the principal investment, R is the rate, the interest rate as a percent or as a decimal, and then T is time in years, of course. And then we were able to find the future value. Okay, and then this formula is a special case if we have changing interest rates, right? Rate 1 for time 1, rate 2 for time 2, and so on and so forth. Okay? But our main players were these two, right? In fact, mostly this one. Okay? For practice, we had assignment 5, part of assignment 6, chapter 4, problems and solutions, quiz 3, and practice test 2. Okay. You have to show work for each question, but you do not need to show timelines. Okay. There is, I think, one part where you have to show a timeline. Okay. And so I'll point that out, but you do not need to show. You know what? I'm not going to highlight it if you don't have to. I'm going to highlight it if you do have to show the timeline. How about that? Okay, so that's part 5. Part 6. Let's put it here. Moving on to compound interest. Okay, compound interest, not with annuities, so not with regular payments, but maybe we're making, it's those problems where, oh, I borrowed money from my friend and I'm going to pay him back in 2 years from now, but oops, I missed my payment and now I'm going to pay him back in 5 years. How much do I owe it in 5 years? That kind of thing. Okay. All right. So it's going to be 3 questions. Sorry, I haven't been highlighting how many questions. 3 questions. Let's see. Let's just 2 questions and 2 questions. Okay. The reason I want to know about 3 questions or 2 questions is because the time limit is the same, right? So if there are 3 questions here, I would expect them to be relatively easy. Okay, so kind of minimal work. All right. So for practice, you've got assignment 6, assignment 7, quiz 4, practice test 2, right? The chapter 5, problems and solutions, obviously. And I know what you're thinking, Emily, you're just making us practice everything we did in the course. I know, right? Rude. But that's what I want you to do. And except for part 2, everything that I have put together, all the assignments and all the quizzes and all the tests have been working towards the final exam. Okay, so that's why I'm just referring to everything that you've done already. Because then you can get really, really good at it and just crush the final exam. All right. Compound interest. were these formulas, right? Whoops. There were quite a few, right? But we had some main players again. These top formulas, they're all this first formula just solved for different things, right? So if you're like me, then I would just remember this formula, right? And ignore all these other ones and arrive at them kind of fresh. This is also where we started talking about the periodic interest rate and N, which is the number of compoundings for now. And then it turns into the number of payments, right? So these are special cases where we had a changing interest rate again, right? So now a periodic interest rate I1 for N1 compoundings, periodic interest rate for I2 for N2 compoundings, and so on and so forth. And then here, this was if we had continuously compounded rates, okay? So these two are special cases, and I can't remember. I don't think that they're on this final exam, but I can't promise anything. Okay, I would say that most likely it's going to be these top ones, and obviously you need to use these two lower ones. All of them require N, all of them require I. Okay. I think what you'll find is now that we've done annuities, which are way harder than compound interest problems and especially simple interest problems, you're going to go back and look at these compound interest problems and think, oh man, what was the big deal? These are easy, hopefully. I think so. You've done way harder things now. All right. Let's see here. So that was compound interest, annuities 1 and annuities 2. I wish I could put them on the same page, but I don't think I can. Okay. Just before we scroll on, you'll notice that annuities 1 versus annuities 2, they're both just two questions from chapter 6 and chapter 7. Okay, very broad. Part 7 has 3 questions, right? So maybe a little bit smaller, not as time consuming. And then part 8 has 2 questions, right? So let that be your guide as to how difficult these questions are. Okay, but let's see here. Let's bring this in. Insert crop here. Let's see here. There. Okay. Oh, I think, I managed to forget. So for compound interest, going back to the previous part 6, if you're using the calculator inputs, which you are allowed to do, okay, and they're not asked for in the quiz, so just like you did on the previous test and things like that, you've had those calculator inputs, okay. If you have those, you don't need to show work, okay. But if you're using the calculator inputs and they're not asked for in the quiz, you have to show them in your work. If the question asks for calculator inputs, no work is required, okay. And you do not need to show timelines for that part, for the compound interest part. So now, that was part 6, yeah. Part 7, annuities 1. So it's going to be 3 questions from chapter 6 and chapter 7. Remember, chapter 6 and chapter 7s were just regular annuities, right? Where the payments are at the end of the payment period, and annuities due, where the payments are at the beginning of the payment period, right? It's the only change, but all the concepts stay the same. You've had lots of practice. Assignment 8, 9, 10, 11, chapter 6 problems, chapter 7 problems, quiz 5, 6, 7, 8, and I think 9 and 10, but they're not going to be on the final exam. Okay, because they're difficult, right? Especially the the bonus quiz, not 10. But yeah, so here, these are the ones to focus on. Okay. If the question asks for calculator inputs, no work is required. Okay. And you do not need to show timelines for part annuities 1. Okay. For annuities 2, I suspect you'll need to show work. Okay. In fact, I'm not going to bring in the formula sheet yet because it's the same formulas for annuities 2 here. So here, 2 questions from chapter 6 and 7, same as annuities 1 in terms of practice. Okay. And here you only need to show work for question 2, and you must include a timeline for question 2. Okay. And if you're using the calculator inputs, you have to list them in your work. So this one is going to be super important that you pay attention to. And I would say for me personally, once I've warmed up with a question that I know can make me feel good about my skills, I would probably head into this one while you're still fresh. Okay, that doesn't work for everyone, but that's what I would do. Okay, so what I want you to be thinking about when you're studying for these parts, for these questions, is kind of have a mental map of how you should be completing these parts, because you do get to choose the order. Okay, so make that work to your advantage. All right, so here, this one's super important. Okay, you only need to show work for question 2, but you have to include a timeline for question 2. And if you're using the calculator inputs, you have to list them in your work. Okay. Now for these annuities, you've got all the formulas, but they're all here on the second page. Let's see here. Okay. I know that's not very helpful, is it? But that's just how it is. Annuities 1 and annuities 2 and annuities. Okay. So quite a few marks for these annuities. So if you don't have them under control yet, I suggest that maybe you start tackling those. Okay. Although everyone did really well on test 3, I went through and I did adjust the grades if I needed to. But 1, you've gotten really good at entering questions or answers in Moodle, so good job. And also it looked like everyone had a good idea of what was going on. So I'm really, really pleased with that. Okay. All right, so here the annuities due. This section is for payments at the beginning. Or maybe I shouldn't say. So payments at the beginning of period of the payment period, but I'm running out of room here. And just here, these ones are when the payments, payments at the end of the period, or of, I'll just say period, okay? Or if it's unclear, okay? Use these formulas if it is unclear when payments are made. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that if the payments are at the beginning, so if it's an annuity due, it has to clearly say, oh, at the beginning. So starting, so some keywords are starting today, right? So starting today, that means right away, okay, at the beginning of the period, or at the beginning of each month, at the beginning of each week. So it has to be very obvious for it to be an annuity due. Otherwise, just stick to this side. Okay. And then we also had these fund perpetuities. I think that it's such a fun idea, right? Just scraping off. So you have some initial investment, right? And then you just scrape off the interest that you make for each payment period. Just kind of fun. All right. But those are our special cases. And I can't remember if there are perpetuities on the final exam. I don't think so, but just be prepared. I don't think it's on the list, the quizzes. Safe bet. All right. Let's see here. Where are we? I think we're on the last part, if you can believe that. The amortization schedule, okay, that's the mortgage. It's usually a mortgage amortization schedule or any sort of loan amortization schedule. And you know what? I'm gonna crop this so it doesn't look so, confusing. Because right now it has information on part 8 there, and I don't want that. Okay. So part 9 is that amortization schedule. You either love it or you hate it. And eventually, once you kind of get the hang of it, it's filling in that huge table, right? And so if you have done assignment 12 and quiz 10 and maybe the chapter 8 problems and solutions, you'll know what's going on, okay? And you do not need to show work for this question, which means that only part 2 and part 9 are the only ones that don't require work. Yeah. All the other ones require some level of work. Yeah. But it's only one question from section 8.1. You can do it. Here's the Dropbox for your final exam work. And here, this is the practice for the final exam that I've posted. So just as a side note, this is a practice final exam that I usually give for in-person exams. So it's a little bit, it looks different when it's typed up. It's the same questions, but it looks different. So the format is different, but I think it's nice to have some more practice problems, all of them kind of put together in one document. Okay. And then I've also posted the solutions. I did post it the practice for the final. So it's all condensed, so there's no room to write things. Okay? But just kind of nice for some practice. And especially I wanted to keep it, obviously there are more short answer questions here than you'll have. But I wanted to keep it as short as possible if you're printing it out, because sometimes that's nice. But as you can see, there are way more questions than what we can go through. So what I want you to do instead is just work through them on your own time. You've got the solution, so slightly different format here, where I show all my work. And here is where I had messed some things up here, but that's okay. Yeah. There, so many typos. There were edits all over the place. Yeah. But anyways, that's me being lazy. I guess I should fix those, but whatever. I did with the edits. All right. So, all right. Are there any questions about the final exam? Not see. Too stressful. I know. You can do it. You can do it. One way or another, all your final exams will be done. All right. So what I want to do is, first of all, thank you for a wonderful term. I'll even write it in the notes. Thank you all for a wonderful term. And I know that this is a busy, busy, busy week. So what I want to do is I'm just going to let you go. I'll stick around if there are any questions. But like I said, if you have questions while you're studying, I understand that you're probably not studying right now. That's fine. You've got other things going on. Then just reach out to me and we can meet up. But good luck with all your studying. Good luck with your final exams. And maybe I'll see you in our Zoom room on Friday, April 21st. I'm glad you like it. All right. Thanks, guys.